miserable.
Welcome back to the Miserable Podcast. It is early in the morning, and we usually don't record podcasts early in the morning, but we had to this morning because we have a special co-host. You're not a guest.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Is that better than being a guest?
Co-host, I don't know if I've ever been a co-host. So
Okay.
yes, I like that better.
All right, sweet. So, doing good so far. We have a special co-host whom I will introduce in a moment. I have Paulie Pie Howard to my left. He is not the special co-host. He is just a regular co-host.
I'm a co-host that is regular, but I'm special.
Yeah.
This is what I have to put up with constantly.
You're welcome.
And to my right, I have our special co-host this morning, Clark Beckham. What's your middle name?
Paul.
Paul. I thought it was
Sweet.
David. I'm glad I didn't say that.
Or
Paul,
Brian.
David, Brian.
No,
Literally
it's Paul.
been calling everybody Brian for the past 48 hours.
That's what Andy Mineo did to me when we did that circle where he like introduced everybody.
What did he?
He was like, and this is Jeremy's boy Brian. I was like, or Paul, but close. He was like, no, not at all. And I was like, yeah, that was the point. That was the joke.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're here. We're having a good time this morning. Clark had a busy day yesterday. He's flying out in he's got to leave for the airport in about an hour. So we're going to fit a podcast in here this morning. And we were discussing right before what we would be talking about. And we never really landed on anything. So as usual, I am about to announce the topic to myself. And I'm actually calling you right now for some reason. I'm literally on the phone with you at the moment.
You said you're going to announce the topic to yourself.
Yeah, to
Missed
myself and to us. So let's do this. We don't have a title for this one, so I'm just going to explain it how we explain it to ourselves, and then we'll come up with a title later.
Okay.
Let's do a conversation about knowing when to take advice and knowing when to just pave your own path. So I guess it's the difference between knowing when to listen to other people and accepting their feedback, and not just accepting it, but actually putting it into action and playing it out.
Yeah.
And then knowing when to just follow your heart. All of us are involved in arts in some form, whether it be music, creativity in some way. So I think we've all felt that tension of people telling you, this is what you should do, this is what you should do. But then also knowing in your heart, like, man, it just didn't feel right to you. And we've all...
You mentioned that last night on the way home about your album cover.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's just, what? Go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, all the time. Well, any creative choice that you have, there are going to be people around you that either agree or disagree. So you're saying it's, do you listen to outside opinions? Or you take those in, or do you follow your heart? And really, the answer is you have to do both. You have to always, 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 always listen to everyone's input, to everybody's opinions, and you have to listen to take those in. And then once you take those in and try them out and give them an honest chance, then listen to your heart. So people know me kind of, I guess, when it comes to that equation, like more to I'm just going to do what I know to do. I'm just going to follow my heart. It's absolutely true. But I've taken more like advice, and like I've said, I'm going to do this. And then someone says, what about this? And then I go with their idea. I've done that probably 75% of the time. But it's the 25 when someone's like, you should do this. And then it just doesn't resonate. Because that's what it's important. You need to take it in. You need to be open to be wrong. That's so important. One of the best life things that I breakthroughs that I came to is like being open to always being wrong. And when you do that, that's how you can take other people's opinions in and critique. But when you do and it still doesn't quite resonate, then you need to follow your heart. So I'm more known for that 25% of being like, nope, And when it's a nope, there's literally nothing anybody can possibly do to change that. Because that's the whole thing is you have to follow your heart. You have to. Because it's the moment you stop following your heart, you stop following, it's not your career anymore. And it's not your career because you're not in control, but you're not making art.
Well, it's not your voice anymore.
That's right. It's not coming from your heart. It's not you. It's other people like in there too when you do something that you don't think is right because someone else said. So
You're
you know what I mean?
At that point, you're basically just a face or a product, I guess, in a way, a commodity rather than your art.
Like a tainted commodity. Mm-hmm. It's not even the pure of you that people like, and that you have a unique thing inside of you that comes out and that makes art and human expression in such a way. And as soon as you start, that's why you have to listen to your heart every time. You listen to other people and they'll have great suggestions and it might resonate with you, and then you do it, which again, I do most of the time. But what's funny is those people who will give suggestions and then you do it, they're like, oh yeah, great, I was right. And so then the next time they say something and you don't do it, oh my gosh, for some reason, certain people just freak, and
it's just take that and run with it, basically.
And they're like, no, you, and then they then they tell me like, you have to listen to other people. You can't just, and then they paint me to be this guy that's like some rogue artist is like trying to do this crazy thing. And it's like, nah, man, it's just.
When like the topic that we're talking about, when you think of the like listening to others and listening to your heart, do you guys see it on a broader scale, like situational, as a like an example, trying to explain what I'm trying to say, like, so you have something you want to do, a project that you're working on, perhaps, or something like that. And maybe you have a vision, but it's incomplete. And you're working through it. Obviously, a lot of creative careers, there's some level of a team effort in some way. Some people that have responsibilities in the process that give you feedback. And some have to give you feedback because they're like the professional in that aspect of the process. Others do it just because either they have an idea or some people further than that think they know better. So I guess what I'm getting at is like, so there's those people, right, that tell you don't do this, or do this thing that you're doing slightly differently. And you can make a decision there to go with your gut and listen to your heart or listen to that person. And you have to evaluate, I think, those things as they come and then decide. Because I do think, you mentioned like trying it out. And I think there's sometimes where if someone makes a suggestion, you need to have the humility to say maybe they know better.
Yep.
Even if they're not a professional to give me the feedback.
Yep.
And then other times where you're just like, no, I'm sorry. This is
right.
Like I have to remain true to what this is to me. And that involves not listening to you.
When we've had that, just not even, I think kind of the way the conversation is being phrased right now, it's almost as if we're saying that the feedback is almost like an opposing force. Not even the feedback, it's the person. Almost like you have to fight people off. So like, I think let's put it in context that that's not necessarily the case. Like you said, the team effort. So like, I think one of the issues is people have the tendency to take things so personally. Sure. So my mom taught me something when I was young. She said, you are not your idea. You are not what you do. You're your own person. So if you do something that fails, you're not a failure. That thing failed, so kind of working through those things. So I feel like I had a good foundation of understanding that if somebody is critiquing something or if they don't like my idea, that's not a reflection on my person. It's just the idea. So I think, like you mentioned, teamwork, and me and Clark have worked on things before, and me and Clark are just very honest with one another. I mean, I remember when you came and we worked on some music a while ago, when it was upstairs in my house in the smaller room. And I remember sitting there, we did 3 or 4 like demo type things. And we were just doing things. And I was just like, what about this? And you're just, no. And it's like, all right, next thing, and it's back and forth. Or you play a song, and I'm like, no, don't want to work on that one.
Yep.
And it's just like that understanding and that trust and the respect, just to know, like, okay, like, as long as you understand, and some people make it easier than others, that it's not personal, and that you both are on the same team and you have the same goal. A lot of times, it's a lot easier just for somebody just to say anything, And we've talked about on the podcast before, and this is maybe, I think, something that you could expound on too, is like, there's some things I want feedback. Like, I want to know what you think. There's other things, I don't care what you think.
Right.
Like, that's my thing.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I don't know how you draw that line or how you experience that, but the more and more that I work with people and at a higher level, the more I realize how much, like, some of the artists that I look up to so much, like, and I'm nobody, and especially like standing next to these people and just the amount of trust that they've put into me. I'm like, why are you asking me? Like, you're whoever, like, why? But it's that they understand that dynamic of, like you said, anybody. The Bryan Cranston quote, a good idea can come from anywhere. You just have to recognize it.
Yeah.
So how have you found, because you work with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's easier to work with some people than it is others. What is like, what has been one of your biggest tensions as far as like your music career and doing your thing? What are some of the biggest like areas of conflict that you've had as far as concerning this, going your way or taking advice?
Oh, sure. Well, before I answer that, I will clarify that, you like, when I was saying like, don't listen, like when you have to follow your heart, you have to listen to everything and whatever your heart says. Sometimes my heart says like, oh no, you know what I mean? And in those situations, like me and you are a perfect example. A lot of times in these mixes that we've been going back and forth with, like, I'll be like, I don't like this, but I trust your opinion on production more than I trust mine. So then you're like, I really actually like that railroad track sound, like that drum that you're like, I really dig it. I'm like, okay, I like whatever, like I trust you more.
Yeah, that's a perfect example.
It also doesn't look like me going, this is exactly what this is. Like, you need to trust other people's expertise and know what their expertise is. So like I got a buddy, Dylan, who's like a really dope designer, and I asked him for help for the new merch. And then when he said like, nah, this shirt's lame, or you need this or that or whatever, I was just like, okay, sounds great. Even if I disagreed, because like, you know better than me. So it's good to have that. It's really good to have that. But to your question, I mean, the big tension that really where that came out, and I guess where people might think of me as the guy who just like goes with his heart no matter what, is the American Idol thing with Scott Borchetta. Is, again, what people don't realize is every week we would do the show. I would say like we do the show, we get through it, we make it, and get the judges' critique, like that, go back that night, lick our wounds, and then the next morning we have to be at the studio like at 8 a.m. to sing the songs that we're going to do for the following week with a room full of producers. And Scott is one of those. And when we do that, then they tell us why they think it's a good idea, why they think it's a bad idea, or whatever. And throughout the whole show, Scott would give me suggestions that were brilliant. Like, so many of my big moments were his ideas. Like, what's that Sting song that I did? Every Breath You Take on piano. One of my favorite moments of the show, and a lot of people's favorite performance. That was totally his idea. I was like, I don't know what to do. First, he's like, what about Bruce Hornsby? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant, but I can't learn that fast enough, and I don't want to do that. He goes, okay, what about Every Breath You Take, just you and piano, like a ballad? I was like, that's cool, let's mess with that. So he had so many fantastic ideas that I picked over and over and over and over and over again. But then there was one part where he really disagreed with something I was doing. And at this time, I was like, it was one of those, like, I'm so confident. I don't care what anybody thinks about this one. Like, it was an arrangement of Your Man by Josh Turner. That's like, baby, lock the door and turn the lights down low, real, real low. And so I flipped it up like a fourth or a fifth and made it as if Al Green were to do it. So it was like, baby, lock the door and turn the lights down low. And had like major 7 chords and minor 4s and like just a bunch of like cool stuff and arrangements that I had. The band loved it. The recording producers and the session guys loved it. Background singers loved it. Like everybody was into it except the people that had a microphone. So like the judges, Scott, Scott wasn't a fan. And so he told me, which again, I need that. I need people to tell me when they don't like it. It's important. Doesn't mean I'm going to follow what anyone says, but I need to hear that. So he voiced that and was very strongly against it and did not agree with it, again, which is fine. But when I took that in, it was like, no, and this is why. Like, this is why I need to keep this. It definitely caused a lot of tension. And then there was the famous, like, shot, like, they do, like, right before the video, right before you perform, they do, like, a little 30-second, like, sizzle reel of the mentoring session or whatever. And I was just getting crucified on there. And I remember it happening. And it was in Nashville. And I remember the shoot and just going in. And I just felt like I walked into like a war zone when I walked in. And I was just getting crushed. But it's not that I didn't care, because I did care, but it was just like nothing. There's no way I'm changing this. It's too good. I'm not going to change this. And I said, like, listen, I would rather play, and I mean this still today, I would rather play alone in my room or on the street for passersby and play music that is coming from my heart and soul that I'm into, rather than play something for stadiums and arenas of stuff that I'm not in. Promise you that's true. Promise. And I said that, and they were like, I really respect that. Don't think it's going to work out for you, but I respect. And then they were just kind of like laughing with each other. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll just sit here and like want to, jump off a cliff. It's fine.
That's like Road to Destruction, though, right? Following that arena mentality, like, I just want to sell out shows and sell albums and all this stuff.
Creative destruction, yes.
Right, and potentially personal destruction too, right?
Potentially.
Because you head towards a direction where you can very easily burn out on the process, which is not good when you're doing something that you love, like an art
totally.
that you love.
And it's, I guess, because some people, I don't know, but I think there's some artists that just get in it just to be successful, like just for the arenas. And it's totally just a capitalistic mindset of just getting money. And that's not in it. That's not in it for me. But there's one moment in that shoot where he says, someone says something to the effect of, Clark, this kind of music, what you're doing, this arrangement, this song, this might lose you the competition. And I looked right in his eye. I said, if this music loses me the competition, then I don't want to win. The moment I said that, a light went out. And everyone was like, oh my gosh. Because we knew, and we were seasoned at that point. Like, we knew how the shoots went and everything. And they knew, and everyone in the room knew they couldn't use that because that light just went out. And they're like, and the tension in the room was crazy. And the light, like, get the light, fix the light. And they finally got it working, and it had, like, someone kicked the plug and, like, unplugged or something just really dumb.
See, there's people like that in every production.
And so then they got the light back up, and then the producer, I can't remember her name, but she's wonderful. And she was like, all right, Clock, I think we had you somewhere at, I was like, yes, ma'am, I got it. Like, I know what's happening. I know you guys got the perfect line and that it broke, and I'll give it to you again. And Scott, I think, and the producers and everybody in the room, I think they were freaked out because they're like, shoot, we got him saying something in his emotions. And now that he's had time to regroup, I don't think he's going to say that again. Like, we got him saying something that's really real, and also like that's going to hurt him, or maybe, I don't know. And they're like, we missed it. And I was like, no problem. I'll say it again. I'll say it right now. I will get it tattooed on my forehead. Like, not a problem. And so I was like, she's like, right, Clock, I think you. I was like, yes, ma'am, I got it. And I just looked right back to them in the eyes and said, if this kind of music loses me the competition, then I don't want to win. And then they were kind of like, okay. And I went to B-Rob, who's the guy who is the editor for that, because we get to know everybody really well at that point. I went to B-Rob right after, and I was like, hey, man. And he edits everything, but I think he loves us, and he has such a great relationship with all the contestants that I think he struggles sometimes to edit things to make it look good for TV that might make us look not in the best light. I went straight to him. I was like, you can edit that however you want. I'm not afraid of anything I said. I'm not afraid of anything they said. Feel no reservations of editing this the best way you want to edit. And he's like, thank you. I was like, have a blast. Go for it.
Do your job and love it.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question for somebody listening out there. You know, they're
Or watching.
Polly, so much. So just as a side note, if they're watching, they're probably listening too. So let's just
Maybe they have
agree.
subtitles on.
Yeah, come on. Don't be insensitive.
Yes. For someone consuming this out there,
You're self-conscious about it.
yeah, every time now. What is it? You know, there's probably people out there. Let's say 3 different types of people who just heard what you said. There's somebody that's like, I get it. There's somebody that's like, you're crazy. And there's somebody that's like, what's going on inside of his head? And like, how would I react if I was in that scenario? So like, what is it where you could be in such a position, like, you know, on national television, on American Idol, getting close to the end, you've been killing it, and you can look at these people and just say, if I don't win because of this, then that's okay. Like, why? What is that?
I think it's just the depth at which, this is going to sound so corny. I think it's just the depth at which the art has taken root in me and in my soul and in the core of who I am. Because there's just, I don't know how to compare it. Like, it's almost the same as, this is going to sound silly, but it's almost the same as like someone's like, you should smack your mother in the face. It's like, what?
Incredible.
There's no way. Like, if you had, like, there's no way you could do it. There's no way. Just everything in you, like, that's my mother. Like, she made me. Like, there's no way that my hand could even do it. And I'm telling you, there's no way that I could have a dope arrangement and just a great musical thing or creative thing that I believe in full, like with all of my heart. That's not all the time, but the few times where something happens, I'm like, this is it. There's no way I can change it or water it down when I think the quality would suffer. And there's just no way. And I don't have a clear answer. It's just like, I'm telling you, someone would literally have to put a gun to my head. Would literally have to do that. And then I'd still be upset about it. Like, that's the only way it would change. And it's just because, I don't know, I think it's a identity thing, like a deep core, not like sometimes we take identities on that aren't necessarily ours, but this is literally like, as as much as my heart beats, like it's connected to that.
So when you went to Idol and you auditioned and it started going, what were you hoping for?
I didn't really think. People ask, like, were you envisioning the end? You've got a lot of like sports psychology people and they're like, and athletes that you hear about that that envision the championship game from the whole season, And for me, I didn't. I just really focused on exactly what I was doing. And I don't know, I was just in it to I wasn't in it to have fun. I was just in it to go for it and do it. And whatever came. But I believed, and I said this on the day I auditioned to somebody. I said, I really believe I'm going to make it in the music business with or without the show. I believe that. So if this happens, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That doesn't mean music isn't going to work out for me.
And that could mean different things as well, like making it in the music business.
Oh, totally. Totally. And I just knew a lot of it is the confidence that God has like my steps ordered. And I was like, if this is the way, if these are the steps to get, to a high level in music, then so be it. If they're not, then I have other steps to take. And that's fine too. So I came from that angle.
Since then, do you think, how do I phrase this? I don't like using the word regret. And I'm talking about bigger than Idol because that's been years now.
Mm-hmm.
So like past that, is there anything that you look at and you're like, oh man, like if I knew this now or if I knew that now, or like, there's obviously constant growth along the way and maturity and things like that. Like I'm thinking more practically now because let's say somebody's listening or watching this and say it's like a 18-year-old guy or girl, somebody that comes to your show, somebody that watches your content and does the harmonies along with you on Instagram. One of these people that's like trying to do what you're doing, trying to do music for a living, like put yourself with your wisdom and knowledge that you have now in the context of this conversation on your 18-year-old self. And like, what would be your advice, maybe, or some points that you could say, hey, this conversation is well and great. You're going to follow your heart, but don't make these missteps along the way or whatever. Do you have anything like that for somebody that's out there?
Yeah, it's tough because a lot of it for me was just like going out and falling on my face a bunch of times to learn. And I don't know if there's another way to do it. Because like, for example, like I like one of the first records that I made, I didn't know, it was right after Idol and I just had a lot of money from the show. And I didn't know that I had a lot of. I just didn't have a concept.
Can you tell? Please tell the story that you told us last night.
Okay, so, and when I say a lot of money, it wasn't. I didn't have like $100,000 in the bank account. It wasn't like that. But I just had like
regular money coming in, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I had these great gigs right after Idol, and when those come, you just think that's going to be your life from now on. So, and I didn't know what to do with it. I was 22 and I was just like, cool. Like now I can eat, I was saying like now I can eat at Outback every day. Like I just can do whatever I want.
As opposed to when we were in college and you're like literally like,
right.
Okay, I can get $2 menu items today.
But I had the same, so this is a story. I had the same backpack from like high school all the way through college. And then after Idol, I was flying and traveling all the time. I was on like 250 flights the year of 2016 or 2015 or something like that. I was flying all the time. And I had this raggedy backpack with holes in it. All the different pockets were coming together because everything was
like
ripped.
one giant pocket
Yes,
now.
it was totally a mess. And I was walking and I just dealt with it. And then I was like, you know what? I think I deserve a new backpack. I think I need to get a new backpack. Now I'm traveling all the time.
Use some of my Outback money.
And yeah, and I was just walking through the store and I see a Toomey store. And I don't know anything about Toomey. I don't realize that it's like the Ferrari of bags. Like, I don't know anything about it. I've never bought a backpack in my life. So I'm just walking through and I see Toomey. I'm like, those bags look dope. And I walk in and they're very friendly. They're like, oh, how can I help you? Would you like this one or this one or this one? You check this one out. I was like, this bag looks cool. And then I looked at the price tag and it was like $350. And I was like, oh, I guess that's just how much backpacks are. I thought like if I went to get a North Face backpack that it was going to be $300 or $350 too. I was like, well, I guess this is how much backpacks cost. And so I was like, okay, I'll get this one. And he was like, oh, okay, great. Like, you'll get this one? I was like,
he's never sold one before.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you're going to get this one?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, I guess. I mean, sure, why not?
It's a backpack.
So I got it.
I mean, you're selling it, right? Like,
But I'll say it's right there, by the way. That's the bag. And I'll say I've taken it through deserts, jungle, like everywhere. It's been dirty and gross. It's been like everything. And it has not changed a bit since the day I bought it.
Today's episode is brought to you by Toomey and their $350 backpacks.
Yes. But to go back to what you're saying, I got taken advantage of a couple times monetarily.
By Toomey.
Not by Toomey. I would not blame that on Toomey. That was backpack ignorance, backpack market ignorance on myself.
I guess that's just how much they cost. Like,
Oh, okay.
I'm picturing like a JanSport, like one of those classics, like $300. Like, nah, bro.
Yeah, I was like, oh, those are probably like $200. Those are probably cheaper. So, but that's the point. Like, when I got taken advantage of a couple times, like monetarily in production, like a producer would be like, cool, it's going to cost, this much and we'll work together. And his resume was crazy. And I was like, this is all I want to do. It was right after the show. I was like, I just want to work with this guy. He's like, great, we'll put it together. Record sounds unbelievable. He did an unbelievable job. And then I didn't know any better. But then when my manager later was like, oh, he got 20 points. Usually producers get like 2 or 3 points. It's like a percentage of the royalty, more or less. He got 20. And I was like, same thing with the backpack. I was like, is that a lot? Like, is that a lot? And someone's like, why didn't you have someone look over it? It's like, I don't have anybody. Like, I had a couple people look over it and they're kind of like me, like, well, I guess that's how much backpacks are. I guess that's how much songs are. His resume's nuts. So it's like, I guess that's what it is. But I paid him a lot. Then I gave him like 20 points.
Right.
So like, there's a lot of those things where I don't know how I would have fixed it. But my first project's called Year One, and it's actually a Batman comic book reference. And the Year One is when Batman goes back to Gotham. He's all souped up and trained and a beast. And he goes to like fix Gotham. And he gets attacked by a prostitute that he's trying to save. Like a pimp is like beating his prostitute, and he's like, "Hey, you can't do that," and starts like beating up the pimp. And the prostitute like stabs him in the leg, and like then another one comes and starts stabbing him, and he almost dies right there. And then he comes back and he's like trying to figure out how to do things. That's how I felt as far as. The producer wasn't the prostitute stabbing me in the leg, but I knew I felt like I was capable. I had the talent and the ability. I didn't have an Alfred or Robin or Batcave or Batmobile. I didn't have any of the team or the methods at all.
You had your utility belt though.
I did have my utility belt with Toomey. And I just went out to do it and I just fell on my face, but I just kept going. And now I have a team around me, but a lot of it is just going for it, being prepared to do it, know what else will do.
So one thing that I thought just now is that we're talking about like paving your own way, following your heart, and we're speaking in the creative context. But let's like think about what you just said and put it in terms of the the business area, sometimes we are so focused on just following our heart, and that's all we're thinking about, and that's all that we care about, where we forget that there's other things that where you actually have to have a practical working knowledge of, that your heart is not even involved at that point. And those are definitely the things that you need to reach out for somebody. And definitely, and that's what we were talking about, some of the things that we got going on. And I was picking somebody's brain that works for Sony Pictures. And we're working on a potential series with some people that we want to do and pitch to some networks and things. And I was like, okay, so help me understand this and this, and like, how much money is this and this? And she was just like, basically her answer was like, you just need an entertainment attorney. Like, stop.
Totally.
Like, don't try to figure this out. Like, you have to go hire a good attorney. Like, end of story.
You need someone who in your corner who just knows.
Right. And it's part of it's just like, oh man, like I have to go there, you know, because I don't want to think about that. I just want to do the show. Like, but like that's a very good point. Like when you're younger, a lot of times that's what it is. It's just like, oh, I just want to do it. I just want to do it. I just want to do it. And you can end up, I know some artists personally who signed some things that literally was like ball and chain for a decade on them.
Oof.
You know, and it's like whatever they did, there was money being taken out of their pocket and given to somebody who was doing nothing for them for years.
Right.
You know, so that's just a good thing to point out too.
Yeah, don't be quick to sign. That's a big one.
Don't be quick to sign. Don't get too excited. Don't you know. Yeah. Which we've talked about that. The older you get, like the less excited you seem to get about things because you've dealt with all of the surrounding issues that come with the disappointments and the unforeseen things. But yeah.
For every, I've learned like for every 5 things that are huge, like life-changing, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. So-and-so said it and they're talking to so-and-so and it's like, it's happening. Like it's going to happen. Usually about 1 in 5 of those things actually happen. And that's what I can't tell you how many like filthy rich people have come to me after hearing me sing and go, wow, you're great. Why aren't you a big star? And I was like, well, it costs a lot of money to make an album. And they're like, I'll pay for it. And I'm serious.
Like,
and
okay, great.
At first I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. And then this happened. And so I'd email him like, hey, and then he'd go to all of his friends. It was at this like event, this gala thing, and they were all like literally millionaires, like just hanging out and with their Toomey bags.
and you're right there with them.
Yeah, and I'm right there with them.
Like,
people wearing backpacks.
That might be, but that might be the issue. They're like, this guy doesn't need money.
Look at that.
I was going to pay for his album, but he's got a Toomey.
He's got a $350 backpack.
Yeah, no. So. And he'd go to his friends with, you guys want to invest in this? You guys want to let's get him out. How much money you need? And I was like, $70,000. And I was like, that would make the best album ever. Like I can do a lot with that. And they're like, nah, it's easy. Or you know what? I think I said a ridiculous number. I think I said like $200,000. And he's like, easy. You want to go in 50? You want to go in 50? And they're all like, yeah, let's do it. And then I emailed him probably a week later. It's like, hey, I'm actually starting getting to work on this. Would like some funds to free up. How do you want to do this? And then they're like, well, my cousin is a great saxophone player and he produces songs. And I was thinking you could produce your whole album with him. And I was like, probably not. I was thinking I have some other people lined up. Like, oh man, well we've got this event in Hawaii and you should come do it. And you know, since we're doing this for you, you can just kind of just go there and do it for free. You'll have to cover your expenses first, but and I'm just like, ugh. And then
red flag.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I've got all this lined up and I'm wanting to move forward. And they're like, well, listen, this made me so mad. I was like, well, listen, Clark, we can't just give you money. Like, you know, we're in capitalism or, you know, something like that. And I was like, I know the economic trend of the country we live in, you douche. Like, don't say, listen, Clark, we're capitalists. Like, this is capitalism country or whatever. I'm like, don't say you're going to pay for my album if you're going to be like, oh, record with my cousin Vinny and then do this and then go, well, we're going to want like 50% of the profit. I'm like, well, that's not exactly what we talked about. And then they want all this control. And they said, have you heard of GoFundMe? And I was like, have you heard of?
I mean, we get it.
You know, it's like
Heard of another go?
Yeah. Exactly. It's exactly how I felt. And so, but again, like every 5 things that happen, that's like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. This is going to change our lives. Like 1 out of
Go
5.
fund yourself.
Typically. Yeah.
Yeah, be careful. This is a family podcast.
Yeah.
I said fund just to clear that up.
Oh, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
This is that awkward moment where we don't know, like, Paulie usually figures out something to say in these moments.
And now there's too much pressure. Now I think it's really easy to get caught up in something like that when you're starting something new, and you don't even have to be young, right? You could be young to a thing,
Totally.
and when you are not bred in money, not to be confused
When
with
you're not
bread.
bred in bread.
Hey.
When you didn't grow up around a lot of it,
Yeah.
and someone like is like dangling the carrot, you're like, okay.
Totally.
And then it all looks great. It sounds great at the beginning. And then there's like, then it starts, the layers of the onion start to peel off, and you're like,
Always.
okay, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Like,
Especially with like rich people. Someone told me this and I was like, oh yeah. We all think that people who are crazy rich, like, oh man, well, they'll give me money. They have so much of it. But the reality is they're rich because they don't give away their money.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they're rich because they have a lot of money because they don't give it away. They don't like, that's
Except for-
why they're rich.
Except for Bill Gates.
Except for Bill Gates and many other people. But it's like, they're rich because they're not flippant with their money and where it goes. And
It's interesting too, because like you mentioned, I mean, I don't know if this was realistically what they said or if this was kind of just, you know, what you were saying. Like mentioning, and we want 50% of the profits, whatever that number actually was, you realize in that moment that they're no longer thinking of you to invest because they believe in your music. That, along with like, you know, record with this specific person, do this, like adding those layers of control. And then when you push back and you're like the reason you like what I'm doing is because I'm doing myself, right? I'm doing what is true to me. And then you're like, you got to play in our sandbox now. And it's like, you're flipping the whole idea. Like you came to me because of
That's
how
right.
I do things. And now you're asking me to change that.
Which is so tough because generally speaking, money and the person with the money innately has the power. So like anytime you have that relationship where it's like somebody who's saying, hey, I could pay for your album. And it's like, okay, cool. There's inherent, what's the word?
Just the dynamic that's created.
Yeah, it's like there's inherent like expectations. It's like, wait a
Totally.
second. But like what's the word? Entitlement. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's an entitlement. That's like, wait a second. It's your album, but it's my album.
Right.
Because you know what I'm
paying
saying?
for it. I'm
Right.
paying
You know,
for it,
so that's a tough dynamic to work through. And I can't imagine like first of all, I can't even imagine having that much money. Where somebody's like $200,000 piece of cake.
Literally.
Like, wait.
Dude is worth like probably $100 million. Like
Yeah.
the dude was just, now people can like look at me and say like, they could literally be like, I will pay for your next album and your next
And you're
album.
just like,
and you don't
okay,
have to worry about
thanks.
anything. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't believe you.
Right.
It's just like,
And we've talked about too, like, which you don't want to get so jaded
mhm.
that you're not excited about anything anymore. We just had this
Exactly.
conversation like 3 days ago. So it's like me and Paulie, just our nature is to be excited.
Mhm.
Like we just, man, if there's an opportunity, we
Yeah.
just, our heads, we
That's
just
good.
run with it. And I think what I said is like, I see in myself is the ability to allow myself to get excited about those things, to run with those things. And then if they don't happen, I also allow myself to be okay with that and just go to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I told him, I was like, man, if I can't get excited, there's no reason for me to be doing anything.
You're
Like,
so right.
I have to be like, there's almost a level of like, I allow myself to be a certain amount of naive almost, you know, like just,
Well, it's probably where you thrive, right? If someone's approaching you with this promise of something, like that excitement, I know for myself, like that excitement is what I need to be able to perform in
right.
that way.
It drives, you know, it
Right.
drives you like,
So if I'm
Yeah.
just like, if I'm like apprehensive the entire process, then I'm probably not going to be giving all that I could.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's a good perspective.
so it's okay. I mean, like, you know, get excited about things like, but also operate in the understanding that things more often than not don't go the way you envision them going.
And I guess I think maybe the key is you change your goal. So instead of like the goal being this thing to work out how you like optimally, it's like, here's an opportunity for me to take a swing. I'm going to take the best swing I can.
Right.
And just the whole focus to be like, not even thinking about the end goal necessarily, but just thinking about, I'm going to do this is going to be practice for a high pressure situation or whatever it is. And I'm just going to give the best swing that I can possibly make so that my next swing will be even better.
Right.
And when that's the goal, and 1 out of 5 of these will happen, it's like, that's a byproduct. Like, makes me think of John Wooden, who's maybe the greatest coach of all time in all sports, said that winning is a byproduct. All these people are like, winning. It's about winning. He says, and he won like, I'm going to get this number wrong, but he won like 9 national championships in 11 years or something like that at UCLA basketball.
Right.
Like, nobody won like that. He started coaching when he was like 20 years old at a high school for girls softball. And they finished like right at 500. Like, they just didn't have a winning or losing season, right at 500. And then he coached till he was like 6 years old. Every season he ever coached was a winning season, except that first team with the women's softball, and when he was 20 years old. So he won more, like he won. We said winning is a byproduct. You don't even try, like he didn't even look at the scoreboard until like the last minute of the fourth quarter when he might need to strategize a play or something. Didn't even look at the scoreboard. Players that played for him said that they never even heard him say the word win or lose.
Right.
He said it's all about, he said success is totally on how close can you get to reaching your absolute, true, full potential. That's success, not the outcome. He said, because when you focus on the outcome, when you focus on winning or losing, because winning or losing, especially in a sport, is comparison. You're comparing your score with their score. You're comparing your game with theirs. And he said, when you do that, 2 things can happen, and they're both terrible. He said, one, if you're trying to get to this level, if this person's here and you're trying to beat them, 2 things can happen. Either you can do your absolute best and reach your full potential and end up right here and fall short of theirs and then count yourself a failure. Say, I'm a failure. When you're not, you're a success. You did everything, and that's the goal.
Yeah.
He said, or the second thing, which is even worse, he said, you can get past them, and right when you pass them, you can stop when your potential was here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so the whole goal is like, take this guy out of it completely and just go as high as you can. And he won 9 national championships in 11 years. And he said his most successful season was was the year that they like went like 700. Like they didn't go far in the tournament. They didn't win a national championship. He said, I never had a team that reached their full potential like that team.
Right.
And that's the season he's most proud of. And that's what we have to do when these big moments come. Like everything I do, I'm doing it to my full potential. I'm preparing. I'm doing everything I possibly can. And winning or these opportunities that come, that's a byproduct. That's going to happen. But I'm just focused on the game. Like I'm focused on the best swing I can possibly take.
Right. It's very similar, and I reference them all the time because I'm a big Liverpool fan. But Jurgen Klopp, they just went on an incredible run, like over a year of not losing. And in 4 or 5 different competitions, won 3 trophies, like recently, like incredible run. And he says all the time, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, he's just like, the outcome, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And you know, that's not important compared to the performance. Yeah. So that's what he always says. If the guys perform and the other team scores some freak goal in the last minute and they lose, he's okay. Like, that's fine. Yep. Like, the only thing that you can really control or you can really do is the level of your own performance.
Right.
And then things happen, along the way. So, and that's like, especially in a creative endeavor where it's like, really the only thing you can control is the amount of work that you're putting in. And then when these other opportunities come, they either come as a result of your work or these freak accidents that happen or things. And the only thing that you can do is be prepared yourself and be doing the thing that you know you should be doing day in and day out. And then at the end of your life, that's like we talked about recently, a lot of the opportunities that we have right now, we really can't take any credit for. Totally. It's just like things. So people always say, well, how did you get that? Like, you're working with this person. Yeah. How did you do that? And you start thinking about it and you're like, well, if I had to trace it back about 10 years ago, you know what I'm saying? Right. Like, I did this little thing that led to this, that led to this. And I use you as an example sometimes. So we don't like saying all the things that we're doing because a lot of things are work in progress. Totally. But like we're working with 2 artists right now that we love. And potentially doing some things with Andy Mineo and Words Played. And we're just like, I'm a huge fan of these guys. And people are like, if we're talking in conversation, they're like, oh man, I love them. Like, how did you get working with them? And I'm like, so if I think about it, I'm like, okay, here's the sequence of events.
2007, I went to this college.
10 years ago, I was at college and me and this guy, Clark Beckham, worked together. And, Clark's had some success and we've done our separate things. And then our paths still cross and we're obviously good friends. And then he introduced me to this guy, who then introduced me to this guy, who then introduced me to this guy.
Right.
Who then introduced me to that. And then there was an opportunity to go to California and we took it. And I'm like, so I couldn't have planned any of those things. The first time I heard you sing, and I remember I went up to you after class and I was just like, hey, do you record? And you were like, oh, I got some songs. I've done a couple things. And I'm like, dude, let's record. And I remember you saying, I don't have any money. I remember that specifically. And I'm like, oh no, that's cool. Like, I got to set up, at in my bedroom at my house, let's just go like do some stuff. And those are the moments that again, we're talking about the outcome or what can happen or whatever. It's just like, if you're listening to this and you're 18, 19, 20, 30, whatever, and you're like, man, there's these things that I want to do. It's just like, man, just be doing the little things now and then be patient.
Yep.
It's the Gary V thing. Like, people want things to happen overnight. And it's like, what if and I made up my mind 3 or 4 years ago when I was frustrated about things. It's like, oh man, I thought these things were going to happen and they haven't happened. And I stopped and I asked myself a question. I said, okay, they haven't happened yet. They didn't happen 2 years ago. They may not happen 2 years from now. I said, am I willing, if it happened 20 years from now, am I willing to continue it for the next 20 years? Would it be worth it?
Am I playing the long?
And I was just like, yes. And then when I said that, I was like, huh.
Yeah.
And it really, it cured so many things.
Yeah.
Like the desperation, the anxiety, the
Totally.
depression. Like when I told myself, like, you know, if it takes me, if I have, if I write a hit song when I'm 50, is that okay? Yes. That's like the first hit song I write. I'm like, yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
And then what the cool thing about that too is like, then if it doesn't happen, that's cool too. Because now I've taken this unrealistic pressure and expectation off. That's like, okay, now that also frees me up to where I can enjoy doing other things as well. And I'm not like in the basement every day, just like, I gotta write a song. And I did that for a long time, So 2 things real quick, and we can kind of end this conversation unless you like have a dying comment that you need to make. Like you're about to go to the airport.
Very well said.
First of all, I do want to say that it is Monday, not even 10 a.m. And shout out to Noah Parker, who has already commented on today's podcast with the answer to the reference that I made at the beginning of the last podcast. I said, this is the miserable podcast where everything's made up and the points don't matter. And I said, who can get that reference?
Whose line is it anyway?
Right. And so Noah Parker, literally like an hour after the podcast drop, has already answered.
Nice.
Whose line is it anyway?
That means he listened to it as soon as it came out, probably.
Right. So shout out to Noah.
Appreciate that,
and we're going to email you back. We got your email. So probably before you see this, because this won't be out for a couple weeks. So we've already emailed you back, hopefully. Otherwise, we have failed. Besides that, do you want to talk about real quick the organization that you're working with that you mentioned last night?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to. So, I partnered with this nonprofit organization called Small Steps for Compassion, started by this family in Orange County, and they watched a documentary on the living conditions for children in Africa, and they decided to do something about it instead of just going back to their nice lives and their meal, and they just decided to do something about it. So they literally flew to an African country called Tanzania, bought land, went through the process of starting an orphanage, and they built an orphanage. And the great thing about them is what I've noticed, because I went there a year and a half ago for a couple of weeks to see it and to help out. The great thing about what they do is that it's a perfect marriage of Western culture and African culture. So it's not just a bunch of white people coming in going, rid yourself of your culture, here's our culture, and it's so much better. It's not that. But it's also not, let's just keep you in this, let's just keep you in exactly the situation you are. You just live with 30 other people.
Right.
So one way is their standard of living is so high. The facilities are so nice. They sleep in great beds. They eat so well. They have a dress for every day of the week, and it's gorgeous. These little girls are running around in these beautiful dresses, and they're made sure that their dresses are clean every day, and they have all these things where their standard of living is higher, and their expectations for the future is so much higher. And I could go on and on, but they're doing incredible things. And
how can people support that?
Yeah, you can go on Venmo or Cash App. Venmo is Small Steps for Compassion. Cash App is Small Steps Donations. Or you can go to their website, and you could just Google Small Steps for Compassion, and that'll get you to the website, because I don't know if it's .org or .gov or whatever, but just Small Steps for Compassion, and you can give through their website and kind of learn more about their story, but it's a dope cause.
All right. And last thing, the album.
Yes, the album, which is slowly coming out.
Partially because of the mixing engineers.
Yeah, the mixing guy really is lame. But just kidding. That's Jeremy.
Terrible.
Just kidding. No, the masters are coming out, and it's called Light Year, and it represents a couple things. Represents a year that I'm this 2020 year is going to be a year of light. I believe that. And it also represents a extremely a long distance covered in a very short amount of time. And that's what I believe is going to happen, not only in my life, my personal life, I'm getting married, I ran my first ultra marathon, ran 50 miles
Crazy.
in a race, doing this tour. This album's coming out. I got a great distribution deal that I'm excited about to push it. But so not just in my life, but also my career. And that's going to be coming out. And I'm really excited about it because the quality is really high.
Yeah,
In spite of the mixing engineer.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
The best song is probably Gloria.
Yeah.
The producer of Gloria he was on his game that day.
Yep.
He sounds like he's full of himself, though.
Yeah. Well, it's part of the
Music industry.
Part of being a producer.
egos.
No, Clark, man, awesome to have you. Awesome to I got to experience you twice yesterday, speaking and then at the show.
Oh, yeah.
Killer show. If you have an opportunity to see Clark, you only got a few shows left, and they'll probably be done by the time this is out. So
Yeah, but I tour every year. So.
yeah, he'll be doing it again.
Yeah.
So yeah, go see him for sure. Thanks for sitting down. Safe travels. And just to wrap it up, always be willing to take the feedback and the criticism. Know who you're getting it from, but also don't discount anybody's.
Yep.
And also know what your goals are and your passions are, and don't be afraid to follow your passions and know yourself. And then be in it for the long game. And please reach out to us if you have any questions or anything that we can help with. Would love to interact with you guys. And I'm sure Clark would do the same if you reach out to him. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time.
I feel like your mom.
No mom jokes. Stop.
Miserable.